Hi again, it's me. And I'm excited about this week's episode because we got a lot of requests from people asking for us to do accessories, specifically jewelry, mostly from the 40s, 50s, and 60s. I've been collecting Mexican jewelry for about 20-something years, and the interesting thing about it is one person changed the whole landscape of Mexican artisans and Mexican silver. And believe it or not, that one person was an American by the name of William Spratling. He happened to be a professor at Tulane University of architecture, and he traveled through Mexico, I believe by donkey, in the late 1920s, and was so moved by the people and the history that he decided to relocate there. And he found this incredible village in the mountains about, by bus it's about 2.5 hours, Taxco, which is spelled Taxco, and found out that the history of Taxco was rich with a silver heritage. The Border Brothers, I believe in the 17th century, uncovered a large cache of silver, mined it, became really rich. And the story that I heard the numerous times that I've been to Taxco is that they built a church on a foundation of silver in the town square, which is called the Zocalo. And I don't know if that's true, but that's pretty remarkable if you think about a foundation of silver. Anyway, long story short, Spratling found artisans that could and revived the gift and skill of metalsmithing. And he had several people that also became important in the history of Mexican silver. What I've pulled out is my collection. You can tell that I'm slightly obsessed, but I pulled the good, the bad, and the not so ugly. I pulled things because it's, with clothing as well, it's not about the labels. Certainly that adds a certain luster to things, but it's really about the design. So I wanted to share with you some of the Spratling pieces, some of the HECTOR AGUILAR pieces, Antonio, and I also have books that we will highlight if you're interested in doing a little bit more exploration into who these marvelous people were. My interest in Spratling came completely by accident. I was visiting my mother, who lives outside of Asheville, North Carolina, and I went into an antique store, and this woman had 2 bracelets, and she told me they were by William Spratling, and that they had belonged to a woman who collected beautiful Mexican silver. The 2 pieces that started my addiction are this, which is kind of a brick with spikes of amethyst, and this wonderful, very similar in design. So after I came back from North Carolina, I went to one of the major auction houses in Los Angeles to get the pieces appraised, and I was told that these were not genuine Spratlings, that they were fakes, which was like, what? So they told me that Spratling never really used a cartouche. He used stamps to identify his pieces. And what that reaction caused was a miracle, because when I went to Taxco, I hired someone to drive me to the Spratling Ranch, and I brought the pieces with me. And I had the great fortune of going to the ranch when Alberto Ulrich was alive. His children were there, and they invited me to have lunch in their backyard. I'm getting goosebumps. In their backyard, and it was incredible. I mean, the backyard was filled with the most explosive colors of bougainvillea. The flatware and the hollowware that was used was all Spratling. It was like, oh my God. Anyway, Alberto told me that these were indeed made by William Spratling. He wrote a certificate of authenticity for me, and he informed me that he had this particular design, but not with the amethyst, only with the onyx in their vault. So I thought, that's interesting, right? Anyway, so these two pieces are the pieces that started this addiction. The next piece that I acquired was at a tribal show at Fort Mason in San Francisco. And this is a very iconic Spratling cuff bracelet. It's very heavy, and I bought it from a collector who actually many of their pieces are in some of the books. So these three things were the seeds that planted my passion, and I love wearing my Mexican silver. In this tray, there are other pieces, but I will tell you, sadly, the last time I went to Taxco, which was I think about 10 years ago, I found out that Alberto Ulrich had passed away, and the ranch was kind of in limbo land. And I did go to the store, and I ended up buying about 6 pieces that were not vintage, because I thought if the ranch stops producing, I still would like to be able to have some of the pieces. So I will segregate the ones that are old and new. The beautiful thing is that you'll see in a book like this, the little book of Mexican silver trade and hallmarks, it chronicles the different years that the hallmarks were utilized. So you can actually date like 1945 to 1948 because the hallmarks were different. And I should also mention that in the 80s, I believe, Mexico changed their system of marking silver to indicate the workshops, which are called talleres, T-A-L-L-E-R, to let you know if it's made in Taxco, if it's made in other areas. So if you see a marking with letters and numbers, you know that that's a newer piece of jewelry made in Mexico. I will also tell you that, have you ever wondered what the numbers 925 means? Sterling silver is 92.5% pure silver, and that's where the 925 comes from. Sometimes you'll see 980, 940, so that's a little bit more pure, but 925 indicates that it's not pure, that there's approximately 7.5% other metals on the inside. I have this funny feeling, maybe because I've lived in California too long, that things wait for you. And I went to Brimfield, Massachusetts, where they have this massive flea market 3 times a year, and wasn't really finding anything. And it was later on in the morning, so things you think would be picked over by then. But I go by the showcase and I see this owl in the showcase, and I asked the person how much it was, and it was what I considered an incredible price. So I acquired the owl brooch, and the marking on the back is really distinguishable. A lot of times with wear, it gets harder to read things, they get worn down. But this book that I made reference to has about 12 pages of the different hallmarks for William Spratling. And if I were to date that piece just as a quick reference, I would date it around 1942, because it has a Spratling silver at the bottom stamp and then the WS with the Made in Mexico. So this is a really valuable book if you want to identify really pretty much any Mexican artisan. I made reference to Margot de Taxco. She has a name that I wouldn't want to embarrass myself trying to say, but it's Margot van Voorhees Carr, and she goes by Margot de Taxco. So this book has all of the stamps and all the hallmarks. It's a great book to have. So moving right along, one of the great advantages of living in a major city is the museums. And several years ago, there was an exhibition on Antonio Pineda, who is another master metalsmith. He was one of the people underneath Spratling. I would be remiss to say that Spratling's impact on the silver industry, I think within just a decade, there were over 500 workshops as a result of his literally mining the beauty and the ancient crafts. And he started off really wanting to utilize a lot of the architectural symbols, and he was into more traditional, pretty much against the European designs. But as time passed, like from the 30s into the 40s, a lot of the silversmiths that started off with him got into modernist influence. And you'll see a few pieces like that. But wanted to mention Margot de Taxco, who was another relevant silversmith. She was known for her enamel work. And one of her most desired pieces is this articulated snake necklace where it's cloisonné enamel. You can see it moves beautifully. And her piece was so desired that even to this day, the craftsmen in Taxco copy her designs. I wish I had the bracelet and the earrings to match the original, but I don't. So I wanted to show that to you. But Margot de Taxco also did, like, this is a cactus bracelet and necklace. It's a choker. And I think this is Margot de Taxco. I was trying to find the signature in here, and I couldn't find it last night when I was prepping for today's shoot. But you can see the designs are really stunning and classic and timeless. So other designers that are important, Frederick Davis, which this beautiful silver and an amethyst bracelet, necklace, and earring set is by Frederick Davis. HECTOR AGUILAR, who used, I mean, look at how simple this design is, but how classic and beautiful. And it closes with a pin as opposed to a tongue. And then I mentioned Antonio Pineda. I have 4 pieces by Antonio. My favorite one is this very basic silver and moonstone. It's extremely heavy and so beautifully constructed. And there are other studios, other workshops that created really beautiful pieces. One is called Los Castillos. I wanted to bring a bowl that I was gifted that is porcelain, I believe. It might be ceramic with silver overlay. They do a lot of really interesting things. But this side of the tray is Los Castillo, and then I can't say it, Ballesteros is another not top tier designer. But on the last 2 trays, I brought pieces that don't have top designer names affiliated with it. The necklace, bracelet, and earrings that I'm wearing also don't. And the reason why I did that was, you know, you can't necessarily afford some of these top tier pieces. The Spratlings go for several $1,000s now. But I mean, look at how incredibly beautiful the repoussé work is on this bracelet. The artisan is not well known, and these are pieces that you could find at antique shows, flea markets, that may cost a couple hundred to say $400. And it's really a worthwhile investment because it's a strong statement, and it's also unique, and it separates you from the rest of the crowd. You know, one of the things I love about vintage is it gives you an opportunity to identify who you are, your quirkiness, your you know, eccentricities, but it also is not following the rest of the universe with things that are branded. I mean, I prefer wearing things that are unique, and Mexican silver is an incredible way to express yourself. I wanted to also show you in terms of anonymous or unknown designers. Look at how great this modernist necklace is. So wear this on top of anything to really kind of make your outfit pop. And then last but not least, it's not just about jewelry. You know, in the Spratling tray, I have objects. I have a box and a little tiny tray. But the last time I was in Taxco, I went into this one workshop and I bought this amazing box with amber, and it won second place in a competition like maybe 25 years ago. I can't believe it didn't win first place. And you'll notice that all of my silver for the most part is tarnished. I am not one that likes to polish and have shiny newness to my pieces. The tarnish adds a patina of age, which I love. So, yeah. Anyway, this is just an incredible, incredible piece. So that's it for now. If you're inspired, do your homework. And there's lots of information on the internet, and there are lots of great books. And if you're a jewelry designer, this is a great place for you to tap inspiration. So that's it for now. See you later. Are you ready for this week's show-off? I was on vacation in Europe for 12 days. I went to Brussels, Antwerp, and Amsterdam. And the whole time I was looking through vintage stores and antique malls, and I was so disappointed. The level of merchandise over there, which is shocking, was mostly rag houses in the vintage stores, and then consignment stores had like a ton of like Dries Van Noten and things that are wonderful but are not really what works well in my store. Excuse me, in my store. But when the last part of my trip, we went to Amsterdam, and I walked into a consignment store, and the first thing that I saw was this amazing Margiela 1999 Stockman tunic. And what I love about this is it's trompe-l'oeil. It's made to look like it's got the shading and the seams. This is a real dart. But when I look at photographs, you don't really see the shoulder pads in a lot of the examples. The stitching, the baby lock is trompe-l'oeil. I mean, it's just a classic Margiela during his tenure. And it was the woman who owns the consignment store had a boutique in the 90s, and apparently one of her better customers came in and asked if she could put in her consignment store, which carries nearly new, this one piece. And I'm the lucky recipient. So I'm very excited to have this. We do plan on doing an episode on Margiela, and I'm not sure when we're going to do it, but this piece will be exhibited again. So that's it. Hope you like it.